Welcome back to Tasteful Choices. The series is produced by ICTV and in partnership with University of Minnesota Extension, SNAP Education, and Itasca 4-H, and also the Deer River Boys and Girls Club and Community Ed. Today we are making an oven-baked chicken, but we're cutting them in strips or small chunks, so it's like chicken strips or chicken nuggets. We also have some nice healthy dips to put them in, made with plain yogurt and different seasonings. Then to finish it off, we're going to have some oven-baked sweet potatoes and russet potatoes. And today the kids learned about healthy fats, which is why we are using chicken breasts. Again, that's a lean meat. And they're learning how to make healthy choices in regards to the saturated fat that they're eating. And they're also spending some time on their extreme meal makeovers, and hopefully they'll be ready to go soon. So today we're going to do something, the recipe is called baked flaked chicken. I just like to call them baked chicken strips, okay? Has anybody made them? Something like it?
I made something like it.
Tell us what you did.
My dad fried them.
Oh, your dad did it? Okay. So they're going to be a little different than the deep fried chicken strips that we eat, right? So what we do is we'll cut them into smaller pieces, and then we dip them into 3 different things. And just remember, we start with the dry, and then go to the wet, and then to the crunchy, okay? So I'm gonna get this stuff ready before I start cutting the chicken. So the first part is the dry. So can anybody see tell me what's in the dry part?
Corn, whole wheat flour.
Whole wheat flour, so that's 1/3 of a cup, right? Okay, so a 1/3 cup, and now just know you might run out of one of the 3 things, so you can just make more. So what else goes in this dry part? Salt, how much salt? Half teaspoon?
Half teaspoon.
Half teaspoon?
No, yes. Yes, half teaspoon.
Okay, anything else? Pepper?
Teaspoon of pepper.
1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper.
Okay. And now, this is where you can add, I know I heard a couple of you saying you didn't care for the Italian seasoning, but if you do, you can add some. I'm going to add some. I'm going to add maybe a teaspoon. And then I also am going to add a little bit of garlic powder. So I'm going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon. Can you smell it?
Carly used to be obsessed with garlic. Put it in everything.
Well, it's a good thing.
Garlic.
I love it.
Okay. So then you can just mix that up. So see, that's your dry. So this is where you'd want to put any other seasonings that you might want to flavor your chicken with. Okay. Now, next comes the wet part. So that's eggs and milk, right? 2 eggs. No eggshells.
I'm not cracking the eggs. I am totally not capable. Such a job.
I just dropped the whole thing and then no.
You can do it. And then how much milk do we have? A quarter cup? Quarter cup? Okay.
Does it have to be non-fat milk? Or?
Well, no, it can be any kind of milk, but at class, from a health perspective, we're going to use the skim milk. But
Sent with milk, or are we getting sent home with milk?
no milk is going home, so you'll use just whatever milk you have at home, okay? And then you each will get a whisk. So then you whisk that up. You want to get it as incorporated the milk and the egg together as possible. Okay. And now comes the fun part, the cornflakes. I'm gonna crush them. So you can, each station has a Ziploc bag. You can use that, or you can crush them in the bowl.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you like cut up the chicken, then you put it in the eggs, then you put it in the seasoning, then you put it in those?
We start with the dry, and then to the wet, and then to the crunch. Yep.
Why would you start with the dry? Because the fish, the chicken is wet.
The crunchy stuff won't stick on the
I get it. I forgot the chicken.
So you can use your hands, it's kind of loud, or a measuring cup. Don't ever use anything that's glass. What's that?
plastic.
No, it's plastic.
Oh, I was gonna say,
You don't want it to break.
don't try this at home.
And then you can flip it over. You can also, sometimes I've used like a plastic glass, yeah,
roller?
not a glass, a plastic cup or something, a roller,
I've heard of plastic glass.
what are they called? Rolling pin? Now, you're gonna want to crush this till it's almost dust, okay? Otherwise, you'll get big chunks of cornflakes on your chicken.
I know people that use big chunks.
Well, you can, if you want to experiment and do some with bigger chunks and some with the finer cornflakes, that's totally cool, and you can decide what you like. Sometimes the bigger chunks don't stick as well. Okay. So, dump that in the bowl.
My mom uses one in cilantro.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so I would suggest you get your pan ready before you start. That way you can, when you're done breading, you can put it right on your pan, okay? And so what we're gonna do is spray it. And make sure you spray it over the sink. Otherwise, it's easy to spray the floor by accident, and yeah, it's kind of dangerous. Okay. Okay. We got it ready. Now I'm going to cut the chicken. So basically each station will have, there's about 1 chicken breast per person. You want to cut them kind of the same size so they bake evenly. We don't want them too big so it takes forever to bake, but if they're too small then they'll just be like chicken jerky. So we don't want that either, right? So I'm cutting this chicken breast into about 3/3, and then, yeah, so those look more like chicken nuggets. You can do,
Cut it right in half and then you got strips.
and there, that's,
Strip.
you don't want them to be any bigger than that. And then, this is where the teamwork comes in. So you might want a different person at each bowl, okay? So, put it in here, and then, do you guys see how? Okay, so you want it fully coated, and then in the egg. So this is the messiest part, and then we go into the cornflakes, and you can put them over like that, and then when it's ready, just set it on the baking sheet.
Have you ever had them before?
Oh yeah, they're good. Yeah, but see now my fingers are full of the cornflakes, so that's why it's good to have 3 people doing this. Okay, and then I'm going to show you what else that I'm going to be making at the chef's station, so you guys don't have to worry about that, but we'll get to try it, okay? So, when we eat the chicken strips or chicken nuggets, do you guys usually eat them plain, or do you have a sauce that you put with them?
I have a plan.
Okay.
Or ketchup.
Okay. So I'm also going to make a couple of sauces for you. We don't have recipes for them, but you can just either use what you always use, or you can see what I'm going to make, and if you like that, you can do that at home. You can experiment. So I'm going to use a plain yogurt, and one of them will have chipotle peppers in it, so it's a little bit spicy, and lime, and then some cilantro. Okay, so that will be one of them. And then the other one I'm going to do just kind of like a, almost like a ranch. I mean, it's going to be garlicky, okay, some herbs in there. And then I'm going to do one on the stove that's tomato sauce and a little bit of Italian seasoning. And so it's not ketchup, but kind of like a marinara sauce that you dip it in, okay? Before you guys go back to your stations, I'm gonna just show you, I'm gonna cut up 1 sweet potato. We're gonna mix them with russet potatoes and bake them in the oven. So they're roasted, they're like oven fries, okay? And I like to leave the skin on because that's where most of the nutrition is and fiber. But if there's some parts that look a little old or dry, or you know, like maybe it started to rot, you can cut that off. But so remember the claw. I sometimes will cut that off to make it easier. Go through the middle. And then I just cut slabs. Now these are kind of firm, so they're a little bit hard to cut. So you've got to be real careful, a little bit like carrots. And then I take a couple slabs at a time, and I go down like that, and we get like a fry, okay? And so if you want them thinner, you can do that. You can cut them in half. You can cut chunks. So it's really however you want. Just stay consistent, otherwise they'll bake at different times. Okay. Like that. And then we just do the same thing with the regular potato. And then I'm going to put them in the bowl, and mix them with a little bit of oil and some seasoning, salt and pepper. You can add garlic, you can add cayenne, anything you like.
Brown
Do it.
sugar is good.
I love
What's that?
Putting brown sugar with it.
Oh, I've never done brown sugar with it. I've always done savory, like with garlic and so, but.
How much oil do you need to put on them?
I like to coat them, but not have them dripping. I just start with maybe like 1 or 2 tablespoons. It depends on how many vegetables I have. Stir it up, and if it looks like they're still a little dry, then I'll put a little bit more oil on. Okay, but that helps the outsides of the vegetable crisp up, kind of. So, okay, good. Go for it.
What do you remember about whole grains? Because this too is information that I'm hoping you use as you make over your meal, because there's something about them that is a little more nutritious. Do you remember?
If it's whole wheat, it has more than nutrition because they're white wheat and such. Fibers. I meant white flour. They take out a lot of the nutrition to make it white.
Right. So I'm going to show you very briefly, you guys, because I brought some of my whole grain stuff, okay? Whenever they make whole wheat flour, and we're just using whole wheat as an example, okay? This is what the inside of a wheat seed looks like, okay? There's 3 different layers, all right? There's the outside of the seed. It's called the bran. And I'm going to show you something. This might be a little bit easier to see this way. Okay. Here's our wheat seeds, right? These are real wheat seeds. If I planted these in the ground, I'd get a wheat plant. So if I cut that wheat seed open, 3 layers inside that seed. And these are what the layers look like. Okay. So the outside is brown, okay? There's a big inside area that's called the endosperm, and that's white, kind of a cream color. And then in the inside of that little endosperm is a teeny tiny little layer called the germ, okay? Everybody's smirking. All right. So the germ, this little germ in here, this is where all the nutrition is. This is, all the nutrition is in this teeny tiny little germ.
Why do they call it a germ?
You know, when you think of germ, what do you think of? Bad. Something bad, right? But this is a healthy germ, okay? This germ, if you were to like plant these seeds in the ground, the plant part comes out of this germ. So like if I planted this seed, this is where the plant starts from. This is where that little shoot comes up above the ground. This is where all the nutrition is, okay? And so what I have in these bags, okay, this is the outside layer. This is the bran, okay? Have you guys ever heard of bran muffins?
No. Yeah.
What kind of cereal has bran in it? Raisin bran. So they take this bran and they put it in our cereal. What's so important about this? This is where our fiber is. This is what helps move all that food through our body, okay? The middle layer, which is kind of, here it is. This is what the middle layer is. What does that look like?
See,
What does that look like?
almost like flour.
What does that look like, guys?
Looks like sugar.
This is where white flour comes from. White flour is this middle layer. So to make white flour, they take the bran out. When you said they remove some things from white flour, they take the bran out, so there's no bran, and they remove the germ, where all the nutrition is. So all that's left is that middle part. And the nutrition that's in here, what's in here, it's called carbohydrates. You guys heard of carbohydrates? Yeah. Okay. They give you energy, right? But it's missing the germ and it's missing the fiber. Okay? So this middle germ, this is what it looks like. If it was real, okay? It's kind of a golden color. And what's in here is this is where the vitamins are. This is where the healthy fat is. This is where something called phytochemicals are. When we talked about fruits and vegetables, they've got phytochemicals, which help to prevent, they fight off diseases. They prevent diseases. All of that is in this germ. So white flour doesn't have the germ and it doesn't have the bran. So what would I get, you guys, if I took this whole wheat seed with all of the layers, the bran, the endosperm, and the germ, and I took this and I just grounded it all up. I didn't separate it. I left all of these layers in there. What kind of flour would I get? Whole wheat. So whole wheat flour or whole grains has got all of that nutrition. Anything that's made with only white flour is only this. That's why whole grains are so much better for us. We got a lot more nutrition. Okay? Any questions about that? Yeah.
Is that actually how big that is? Because then if I smushed up that white part, it would turn into that much.
This, it might, right? It might if it was real, right? So that's why when we're doing our meal makeover, if you have anything in your plan that is coming from white flour, and I'm going to call it processed white flour, like this processed white flour, they do, you know what, they bleach it, they do all kinds of stuff to it, right? I'm hoping that you think about how could I include a whole grain? If you're using, it could be noodles, it could be bread, could be rice. If any of that is in your meal, try to think about how could I make that healthier and switch it up to a whole grain. Okay? All right, so that's that. Now let's talk about what I have up here, because I want you to think about this also. All right? Can you guys see that? Probably don't need this. All right. I call this board good fat and bad fat. So we need healthy fat in our diet, right? Fat plays an important role, okay? It does some good things for our body. And there is some foods. How many of you have heard this word before? Can anybody say that word for me?
Saturated fat.
Have you guys heard of saturated fat?
Yep.
Where have you heard of saturated fat? Okay, on nutrition labels. It's on all nutrition labels, okay? If you read a nutrition label, it'll say fat, and then it will usually break the fats down because there's different kinds, right? Saturated fat is in all the foods we eat that come from an animal, unfortunately. So what kinds of food do you like that comes from an animal?
Hamburger.
Hamburgers. What? Chicken. Chicken.
Venison.
Venison. Elk. What else? Venison burger.
Rabbit.
Bacon.
Rabbit.
Beef.
Rabbit.
Huh? Turkey bacon. But now, okay, rabbit. But now pork. Yeah, that darn pork. You know, but, and some of that meat has more saturated fat than others, okay? One that's really, really high in saturated fat is our bacon. In fact, bacon is probably more fat than it is meat. Okay? Who said turkey bacon?
I did. No, I can't.
Yeah, so turkey bacon hardly has no fat at all because turkey and chicken don't have much saturated fat. Where's the fat on chicken? If you were to, like the chicken that we were eating tonight, did it have fat in it? Did you see any fat?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, not much though, right? We actually, the chicken we're using tonight has most of the fat removed. How did we remove the fat? Who said that? The skin. That skin on the chicken and the skin on the turkey is all saturated fat. Okay? So that was already taken off. So we really didn't have much saturated fat in our chicken tonight. Okay? But things like bacon that are really greasy, hamburgers, unfortunately, can be pretty greasy, but you can buy hamburger that is less fat. And then you can buy some hamburger that has a lot of fat, but you gotta read the labels, how much fat is in there. How come I've got cheese and ice cream up here? It's because they come from an animal, right? So our milk comes from an animal. And what kind of milk do you guys typically drink? There's different kinds. There's whole milk, 2%, 1% skim. 2%? 2%? You do the whole, okay. So whole milk, like I think, what kind of milk did we use tonight?
Low fat.
Was it skim? I think it was skim, wasn't it? Okay. So whole milk has the most fat. Okay? And unfortunately, the fat is saturated, okay? That's why they make skim milk in 1% and 2%, because they take the fat out, all right? How many of you have heard of unsaturated fat? Have you? Okay. Unsaturated fat is what is in plants, okay? This is the fat that's good for us. This fat is good for our heart, okay? Things like olives. What kind of oil did we use tonight? Did we use olive oil or what did we use?
Sprayed something.
Was it canola oil? Yeah. I think it was probably, right? Probably came from canola, which is a plant. Olive oil comes from olives. So if you eat olives, you get really good, healthy fat, okay? And any kind of nuts or avocados or fish. How many people like fish?
I never tried it.
You never tried fish? Okay. So fish is really good for our heart. Okay? All right, so I keep talking about your heart, right? With this fat. Yes?
Fish also carries mercury though.
It does. So you have to be careful how much you eat, right?
And smaller fish carry less.
That's right. So, all right, I want you guys to kind of use your imagination here. Eyes up here, because this is important, okay? If you have a diet that's really high in saturated fat, these kind of foods, our junk foods have saturated fat too, okay? And you eat it a lot. Not just, you know, I mean, let's say that's all you eat, okay? You always deep fry your chicken, Okay, fried chicken, you eat pizza every day or French fries every day or you go to fast food restaurants every day, eat bacon every day, okay. What happens, this is to represent your artery. And what's an artery, you guys? Huh?
It's sort of like a valve in your heart.
It's connected to your heart. It's where the blood flows. You guys, it's where the blood flows, right, to get to your heart, okay? It keeps your heart working the way that it's supposed to. If you have a diet really high in these fats, what can happen is it can cause something called plaque to actually start to like get stuck inside of your artery. Okay? Once you get some plaque started inside your artery and you continue to eat this way, more plaque and more plaque and more plaque and more plaque gets stuck in your artery. Remember, this is where the blood is going to your heart. It can get to the point where your whole artery can get filled in with this plaque. And what do you think happens if your artery gets so plugged up with this plaque? And it could be where maybe there's a teeny tiny little hole for the blood, or it can get so plugged that the blood can't even get through. What do you think is going to... Heart attack. Okay? This is what causes heart attacks. This is heart disease. How many of you have heard of somebody who's had surgery on their heart? Who's had heart surgery? Usually, not always, but many, many times, the reason why people end up having heart attacks and have to have surgery is because this is what's happened. It's often related to the way people eat, okay? Causes plaque. And you know what too? If you're not exercising, if you're not moving around a lot, it's easy for this to happen too if you have a diet that's really high in this. Now, I'm not saying don't eat this stuff. That's not what I'm saying. We just want to make sure that we're eating lots of vegetables, we're having fruit, whole grains, and most of these foods that are good for us, we need that protein, right? We need the protein. When you look at my plate, how big is the protein group compared to the vegetable group?
It's like small.
This is all we need on our plate, kind of like the size of the fist, okay? How big is dairy? It's not that big. So this is what I want you to think about when you're making your meal, okay? Protein, yes, we need protein, but we need more vegetables, more whole grains than protein or dairy. These are important, but we tend to eat more of these than we need.
Then next week we will be making homemade granola and then making some fruit, granola, and yogurt parfaits. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.